Ever find yourself searching for your keys, like completely blanking on where you put them? Or maybe you've gone blank on a name right when you needed it most. Happens to all of us. Memory. It's this incredible
Yeah,
thing, really shapes who we are, right? Colors all our experiences. But it can be so frustrating sometimes.
it really can.
Well, today we are diving deep into the mysteries of memory. We'll be using some fascinating material provided by London HeartbeatsZ Academy UK.
Yeah.
Big thanks to them for sharing their expertise with us for this deep dive. And hey, before we really get started, make sure you're subscribed to all our channels. Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yep.
That way you won't miss out on future deep dives like this one. Okay,
Yeah.
ready to unlock the secrets of your own mind?
Absolutely. Let's start with some basics. I think most people have a general idea of what memory is. It's basically our ability to store information
Okay,
and recall. It could be experiences, skills, facts, all kinds of things.
you name it.
Right. And it's this capacity, this ability to remember that lets us learn and adapt, even predict what might happen next.
So it's more than just like remembering what I had for breakfast this morning.
Right.
It's how we make sense of the world around us, right?
Exactly. And to understand how all of this works, how our memory works, we got to picture how information flows through these different memory systems that we have.
Okay.
Think of it like a journey with three main stops along the way.
Okay, I like that. A journey.
First stop is the sensory register, then we have working memory,
Okay.
and then finally, long-term memory.
Okay, I'm picturing like a mental map here.
Yes.
3 stops. So first stop, sensory register. What exactly happens there?
Right. Imagine you're at this really bustling market, sights, sounds, all the smells.
Oh, yeah?
Your senses are being bombarded with information, right?
Right.
So the sensory register is like this temporary buffer. It holds on to those sensory impressions for just a tiny bit.
So it's like a quick snapshot.
Yeah.
But it's gone really fast.
Incredibly fast. And only the most relevant stuff makes it through to the next stop on our journey,
Gotcha.
which is working memory.
Okay.
This is where things get really interesting because this is where we actively start processing and manipulating information.
So we're actually thinking about it here.
Absolutely. This is your mental workspace.
Okay.
This is where you are juggling thoughts, making connections, trying to solve problems, but working memory, it's got this catch.
Oh.
It has limited capacity.
Okay.
It can only hold on to a small amount of information.
It's like when someone gives you a phone number and you're trying to remember it.
Yes.
You just keep repeating it over and over in your head so you don't forget it before you can write it down.
Exactly. And that
Yeah.
repeating, that's rehearsal. And if we rehearse enough or work with the information in different ways, it can move on to the final destination, long-term memory.
Okay, long-term memory. That's like the big one, right?
It is.
That's where we keep like everything we've learned, all our experiences.
The vast storehouse. It's remarkable. I mean, this system can hold on to things for years and years, decades even, but it's not a perfect system.
Right.
Memories can fade. They get distorted.
Happens.
And sometimes we just can't quite retrieve that information, even when we know it's in there somewhere.
Oh, we've all been there. That tip of the tongue feeling, like you know the answer.
Yes.
It's right there, but you just can't quite get it out. So how does the brain actually create these memories and then store them?
Okay, so that's where things get really fascinating. See, we've got multiple areas of our brains all working together. Each one has its own specific role to play.
Okay, so it's like a control room
I like that analogy.
with different specialists doing their thing.
Perfect. So one of the key players here is this structure called the hippocampus.
Hippocampus.
You know, like the seahorse?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's deep inside the brain.
Okay.
And it's all about forming new memories and connecting them to things you already know. Think of the hippocampus like your brain's librarian.
Okay, I like that.
It's organizing and cataloging all those memories.
So it's like the Dewey Decimal System of our brains.
Exactly. And then we have the amygdala.
Okay, the amygdala. Now, that one, I've heard that's connected to emotions.
Yes.
And how emotions can affect our memories.
Right. The amygdala, it's near the hippocampus,
Yeah.
shaped like an almond.
Yeah.
And it's all about emotions. It helps us link feelings to events, which actually makes them more memorable. Have you ever noticed how, a certain smell can trigger a really vivid memory? And it often has a strong emotion tied to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Completely takes you back. Speaking of vivid memories, let's talk about all the different types of memories that we have. Oh, and before I forget, be sure to follow us on social media to keep this conversation going. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. So back to those memory types. How does our brain, like, sort all these different pieces of information? How does it categorize them?
Okay, so we can think about memory like a hierarchy
Okay,
with different levels of complexity.
gotcha.
At the very broadest level, we've got sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory, like we talked about before, that's that really fleeting first impression of information from our senses.
Okay.
It's incredibly brief, just a fraction of a second.
Like seeing a sparkler.
Yeah,
And you know how it leaves that trail of light?
that's it.
Even after the spark is gone, that's like your iconic memory. It's capturing that quick visual impression.
Perfect example. Then we have short-term memory, which is also called working memory.
Yep.
And this is what we use to hold on to information for a little bit, usually less than a minute. It's like our mental scratch pad,
Okay.
where we jot down thoughts and ideas we're actively working with.
So it's kind of like the RAM of our brains,
Makes sense.
just holding on to the stuff we need right now.
And then finally, we have long-term memory. This is the big one, the huge storage system for everything we've learned and experienced over time.
Okay, it's pretty amazing how much information our brains can store.
Isn't it?
But I'm guessing even within long-term memory, there are different types of memories, right?
You got it. Long-term memory is very complex. We can break it down into two main categories: explicit memory
Okay.
and implicit memory. Explicit memory is also known as declarative memory,
Okay.
and it's the type of memory where we consciously recall facts and events. It's what we use when we try to remember a specific piece of information, like a date in history or the capital of a country.
So that's what we use when we take a test
Exactly.
or when we want to show off with trivia.
Yes. And within explicit memory, there are two subtypes:
Oh, okay.
episodic memory and semantic memory.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Episodic memory is all about personal experiences, specific events,
Gotcha.
like our own personal autobiography. It stores the episodes of our lives.
So if I think back to my 10th birthday party with the cake and presents and maybe some embarrassing moments,
Yes.
that would be episodic memory.
Perfect example. Semantic memory, on the other hand.
Okay.
That's our general knowledge about the world, facts, concepts, ideas, things that aren't tied to a specific personal experience.
So like knowing that Paris is the capital of France
Uh-huh.
or that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, that's stuff we just like know.
Exactly.
But it's not connected to a specific event in our lives.
Exactly. Now, implicit memory is a little different. It's often unconscious. It's the type of memory that involves skills and habits.
Okay, so implicit memory, this is where things get a little more subconscious.
Right. This is the memory we use when we ride a bike,
Okay.
play a musical instrument, even tie our shoes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We don't have to actively think about each step. Our bodies just know what to do.
It's like muscle memory
Yes,
for our brains.
exactly. And one of the most important types of implicit memory is procedural memory.
Okay.
This is our memory for skills and procedures, the how-to knowledge. We often take it for granted. It's like when you drive a car, you don't consciously think about how to steer or use the pedals.
Mhm.
It's all procedural memory. It's handling those actions automatically.
Oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. It's like our brains are running all these complex programs in the background.
They really are.
We don't even realize it. So I remember from the materials, there's this model, the Atkinson-Shiffrin model.
Yeah,
That's not right.
it does.
And it's supposed to explain how information moves through those different memory systems.
That's right. It's also called the multi-store model.
Okay.
It's a classic one for sure. And it basically proposes this idea. Information is processed in this linear sequence.
Okay.
It starts with sensory memory, then moves to short-term memory,
Yeah.
and then finally to long-term memory.
So it's like a conveyor belt,
Kinda.
moving information from one stage to the next.
I like that visual.
So what determines if that information, if it actually makes it all the way to long-term memory?
That's the big question, isn't it? A lot of it has to do with attention. If we're not paying attention to something, it probably won't even get past that first stage, the sensory memory.
What?
And even if it does make it to short-term memory, it could easily fade away. Yeah. Unless we do something, like rehearse it or work with it in some way.
So we can't just passively absorb information. We have to, like, actively engage with it if we want it to stick.
You got it.
And speaking of actively engaging with information, I'm really curious about those memory techniques you mentioned,
Yes.
like the method of loci
Uh-huh.
or the memory palaces.
Right.
I would love to hear more about those. But first, a quick reminder for everyone listening. Make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube.
Definitely.
You don't want to miss out on future episodes where we dive into all sorts of cool topics. So let's talk about those memory techniques. Mnemonics, I think that's the term.
That's it. Mnemonics are these techniques that help us improve our memory. They use things like vivid imagery, association, organization,
Okay.
and the method of loci, the memory palace. That's a classic example.
Okay, so explain how it works.
Basically, you associate information with specific locations in a place that's familiar to you, like your home,
Yeah.
or a route you walk all the time.
So you're basically turning your home into a mental treasure map.
You got it.
Yeah.
You create this memory palace in your mind,
Okay.
and you can mentally walk through it to retrieve information. The trick is, the more vivid and unusual those associations you make, the better you'll remember them.
Makes sense.
So let's say you have to give a presentation. You could associate each key point with a different piece of furniture in your living room.
Ooh, I like that.
You could picture your opening statement right there on the arm of the sofa,
Yeah.
your first main point. Maybe it's projected onto your TV screen.
Gotcha.
And then your conclusion. It's just chilling on the coffee table.
It's like you're turning your home into this stage
Yes.
for all your memories.
Yeah.
So I've heard that memory isn't just about, what's happening inside our brains.
Right.
It's also affected by what's going on in our bodies, in our environment.
Exactly. Our brains are always interacting with our bodies and surroundings.
No.
And those interactions, they can have a huge impact on our memories. Like stress, for example.
Oh, yeah, stress.
If we're stressed out all the time, our bodies release this hormone called cortisol.
Yeah.
And cortisol can actually damage the hippocampus. That's that key brain area for memory formation.
So stress isn't just bad for our mood. It's literally bad for our brains.
Yeah.
Like it can hurt our ability to form memories.
Exactly.
So is there anything we can do to protect our brains from that, from the negative effects of stress?
Oh, for sure. There are so many things we can do to manage stress
Okay.
and protect our brains.
Mm-hmm.
Things like exercise, mindfulness, spending time in nature, connecting with people we care about. All these things help reduce stress and promote well-being.
Okay.
And when we feel good, our memory benefits too.
So it's not just about cramming information into our heads.
Right.
We also have to take care of ourselves.
It's all connected.
Overall well-being. It's all connected. Okay, what about sleep?
Oh, sleep is crucial.
Because we all know how groggy and forgetful we feel when we don't sleep enough.
Definitely. Sleep is when our brains process and consolidate all those memories from the day.
Okay.
It's like they're moving them from that short-term storage to long-term. But if we don't get enough sleep,
Yeah.
that process gets messed up, and our memories pay the price.
So it's not just about the number of hours.
Right.
It's about the quality of sleep, too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about stress. We've talked about sleep. What about smoking? Does that affect our memory?
Oh, absolutely. Smoking is bad for our brains in a lot of ways.
Okay.
It increases the risk of problems with our blood vessels,
Okay.
and that can reduce blood flow to the brain. And when that happens, well, we can experience cognitive decline,
Oh, wow.
including memory problems. So if you're looking for one more reason to quit smoking,
Yeah.
there you go. Protect your brain.
Protect your memory.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've been talking about all these ways to strengthen our memory, but what about forgetting? We all forget things. Why does it happen?
Forgetting. Or we can call it retention loss.
Oh.
It's basically when stored information seems to be lost.
Okay.
It can happen suddenly or gradually.
Gotcha.
And there are all sorts of reasons why we forget things. Sometimes it's just that information fades away if we don't use it.
Oh, okay, so use it or lose it.
Kind of, it's like a path in the woods. If nobody walks on it, it gets overgrown.
So it's the same with our brain. If we don't use those neural pathways, they kind of disappear.
The connections get weaker, that's for sure. And sometimes forgetting happens because of interference. Like if we learn two similar things close together in time,
Okay, yeah,
they can interfere with each other. Makes it harder to remember.
that makes sense. It's like having two files on your computer with almost the same name.
Exactly.
Hard to remember which one is which. I've also heard that as we get older, we tend to forget things more easily. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true that as we age, our brains change. And these changes can affect our memory. The hippocampus, that area that's so important for making new memories,
Yeah.
well, it becomes more vulnerable as we get older. Plus, we start to lose some neurons, and the blood flow to the brain can slow down.
Oh, wow.
All these changes can make us more likely to forget things.
That's a little concerning.
Yeah.
So are there things we can do even as we age to help our brains stay healthy.
Absolutely. Even as we get older, there's a lot we can do to support our brain health and
Wow.
keep our minds sharp. Staying mentally active is huge.
Listen.
Puzzles, learning new skills, having good conversations, all those things can help.
So it's like giving your brain a workout.
Exactly.
Instead of weights, it's like Sudoku or learning a new language.
And just like with physical exercise, it's good to have variety. Keep challenging yourself with new things.
Okay, that makes sense. What about like actual physical activity? Does that help our brains too?
Big time.
Yeah.
When we exercise, it increases blood flow to the brain.
Oh,
That means more oxygen and nutrients, which are essential for those brain cells. It's like giving your brain a boost of energy.
so that afternoon walk,
Yeah.
it's not just good for my heart.
Right.
It's a brain power booster too.
Yeah.
Okay, how about our diet? Are there certain foods that are like brain boosting?
There are foods rich in antioxidants, like colorful fruits and vegetables.
All right.
They help protect our brain cells from damage.
Okay.
Omega-3 fatty acids are great too.
Okay.
You find those in fatty fish like salmon, super important for brain health.
So it's not just about what we're putting into our bodies, it's about what we're feeding our minds too.
Yeah.
We've been focusing a lot on strengthening memory,
Right.
but I want to touch on like a more extreme case of forgetting,
Okay.
amnesia.
Yeah.
It's often portrayed in movies and
Yeah.
stuff, but what is it really?
Amnesia is a real condition.
Okay.
And it can be really serious. It's basically when someone experiences significant memory loss.
Wow.
It can be caused by lots of things. Brain injuries, certain diseases.
And there are different types, right?
Yeah, you got it.
I think I saw a diagram in the materials that showed like a timeline of memory
Mm-hmm.
and how different types of amnesia affect it.
Right. So anterograde amnesia, that's when someone can't form new memories
Oh, wow.
after a certain event, like an injury. So imagine it's like they're living the same day over and over.
That must be so
It's
disorienting.
a really tough situation. Then there's retrograde amnesia.
Okay.
This is when someone has trouble remembering things from the past,
Okay.
especially events that happened right before something traumatic. It's like having these gaps in their personal history.
So if someone was in like a car accident,
Yeah,
they might not remember what happened right before the accident.
exactly. It can be a real challenge. And while there's no one-size-fits-all treatment for amnesia,
Yeah.
therapies focus on helping people develop coping mechanisms and using whatever memory function they have left.
It just makes you realize how fragile our memories are
Huh.
and how complex the whole system is.
It really does.
Before we wrap up, I'm curious, what are some things we can do, like in our everyday lives, to cherish our memories and keep them strong?
I'd say stay engaged with life. Be curious.
Okay.
Challenge yourself. And never underestimate the power of being mindful and connecting with others.
I love that.
Hmm.
It's like a recipe for a good life and a good memory. This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of memory. A huge thank you to London HeartbeatsZ Academy UK for giving us this amazing material.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the deep dive on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. That way you'll get notified about all our upcoming deep dives. You don't want to miss those.
We were talking about how aging affects memory. And yeah, some decline is normal.
Right.
But there's actually a lot we can do to keep our minds sharp.
It's good to know we have some control over it. So
Yeah.
what are some things we can do to be proactive about it?
It's like taking care of a garden.
Okay.
Your brain needs the right conditions to thrive. Staying mentally active is key. Doing puzzles, learning a new skill, even having stimulating conversations.
So you're saying it's like a workout for your brain.
Yeah. But instead of lifting weights, you're doing Sudoku or learning Italian.
It's a way better workout.
And just like with physical fitness, it's good to mix things up.
Okay.
Challenge your brain with new things.
Makes sense. What about physical activity? Does that actually help our brains?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Really?
When we exercise, it increases blood flow to the brain,
Okay.
which means more oxygen and nutrients for the brain cells.
So that afternoon walk is doing double duty.
Exactly.
Good for my heart and my brain. Okay, what about food? Are there any brain-boosting foods we should be eating?
Definitely. A diet that's rich in antioxidants, like colorful fruits and veggies, that's a good start. It can protect brain cells from damage.
Okay, good to know.
And omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
Those are really important for brain health, too. You find those in fatty fish.
Okay, like salmon.
Exactly.
So we have to feed our minds as well as our body.
We do.
We've talked a lot about how to strengthen our memory, but let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the opposite.
Okay.
A more extreme case of forgetting,
Yeah.
amnesia. It's something we see a lot in movies, but what is it really?
Amnesia is a very real condition,
Okay.
and it can be pretty debilitating. It's when someone loses a significant amount of their memory,
Wow.
and it can happen for a lot of different reasons. Brain injuries, certain diseases.
So I know there are different types of amnesia. I remember seeing a diagram in the materials you provided.
Mm.
It showed like a timeline
Right.
of how different types of amnesia affect our memories.
Exactly. So there's something called anterograde amnesia,
Okay.
and that's when someone can't form new memories
Oh, wow.
after a particular event, like an injury.
It's
It's almost as if they're reliving the same day over and over again.
Oh, it must be so hard. So disorienting.
It can be a really difficult thing to deal with. And then there's retrograde amnesia.
Okay.
That's when someone has trouble remembering things from their past.
Okay, so it's going backwards.
Right. And it's often those memories closest to a traumatic event that are hardest to recall. It's like having missing pieces in their life story.
So if someone was in a car accident, they might not remember what led up to it.
Exactly. Amnesia can be incredibly challenging. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, but there are therapies
Okay.
that focus on helping people cope and on maximizing whatever memory function they have left.
It really makes you appreciate how delicate our memories are.
It does.
Well, before we go, any last words of wisdom on how we can all cherish and nurture this amazing gift of memory that we have?
I would just say stay engaged with life.
Okay, I like that.
Be curious about the world.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. And never underestimate how important it is to be mindful and connect with others.
That's great advice. It sounds like a recipe for a good life and a good memory. This has been such an incredible deep dive into the world of memory.
It has.
A huge thank you to London HeartbeatsZ Academy UK for providing all this amazing material.
It was our pleasure.
And all our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. That way you won't miss any of our future deep dives. We've got some fascinating topics coming up.
We do.
So until next time, keep those memories sharp and keep exploring the world with that wonderful curiosity we all have within us.